My name is Diane. I'm 72 years old. Wow. I live alone in an old house in Tempe, Arizona, and I carry a lifetime of silence on my back. I've been a wife, mother, nurse, housewife, counselor, but above all, I am a grandmother. Oh. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that a grandmother feels when something is wrong. Can you imagine hearing your 7-year-old grandson whisper in your ear in the middle of his father's wedding? Grandma, look under the table. It may seem like a common phrase, but when it comes with eyes full of fear, something breaks inside us. At that moment, I knew something there was not right. Maybe you've felt it too. That intuition that no one respects. That anguish that you can't explain. Our hearts perceive what others pretend not to see. And when a child's love is at stake, oh, do we see it even in the dark? Today, I'm going to tell you what I found under that table and why. Dinner chant, my talk now. After a lifetime of silence, I had to act because there are days that change everything, and that was one of them. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know one thing. Nothing in life prepared me for what I found that day. Grandma, you didn't look under the table, did you? That's how it began. A phrase whispered with such fear in the middle of loud music. Wasting on time, tied into the situation, glasses clinking, people smiling as if the world were at peace. But I listened. And when I looked, there under the white tablecloth, loose between the folded napkins and the legs of the chairs, I didn't find just a piece of paper. I found a threat, an evil so calculated that to this day it is hard for me to believe. I'm not ready to tell you what was written there, but I can say that, after reading that note, I was never the same again. And if you've ever felt betrayed by someone who said they loved you, you'll understand every word of this story. Before continuing, I wanted to ask you something very simple. But that for me has a lot of value. If this story has already touched you in any way, if you feel that you didn't get here by chance, support me with a like and subscribe to the channel. This gives me the strength to continue sharing memories that hurt, but that need to be told, because there are pains that only we understand, but that, when shared, become consolation for another soul as well. The wedding was on a sultry Saturday in September at the Desert Willow Conference Center in Phoenix. A beautiful place for those who have always lived with the necessities. Everything there shone. The silver cutlery, the yellowish lights reflecting on the crystal glasses, the smell of French wine mixed with that of fresh orchids on the tables. It was as if someone had ordered a happiness magazine and spread it around the corners of the room. I was at table 6, along with Leo, my grandson, and Lucy, my adopted daughter, who came into my life many years after my sister's death. Leo's 2 hands held my bag in their lap, as if they wanted to hide from the world. He was quieter than usual, looking at people as if looking for an invisible way out. Lucy, always attentive, also noticed Nia Note. He gave me a corner look, one of those who say there's something wrong, but without having to speak. Alex, my son, was at the altar, how handsome as his father was in his youth, dressed in a dark suit, wide smile, an expression of someone who thinks he has finally won in life. Next to him, wow, Ava, tall, elegant, rehearsed smile, and calm, little calm, don't touch it. Perfect makeup. Ah, but the eyes. Ah, her eyes didn't follow her smile. They were cold, sour, not cold as ice, cold as glass, transparent and empty. From the beginning I tried to like her, out of love for my son, out of respect for the future he chose. But every time I got around her, something bothered me, a strange feeling, as if I was always stepping on a ground that is not mine. The party began right after the ceremony in the garden. We all entered the room, and the waiters began to circulate with silver trays, breaded shrimp with fine herbs, cups with sauces that I don't even know the name. All very chic. I noticed that Leo didn't want to take anything. He just shook his head, softly. Yes, I'll download town. Do you want Grandma to go get a loaf of bread? My love? I asked, bending down to talk very close to him. Want to? I'd stare, not asked. He looked at me with that look that a child has when he knows something very ugly. Oh, but doesn't know if he can tell it. He hugged me tight and said, "Well now, I'll go to you. Don't eat anything from here, Grandma." At the time I felt a chill, but I didn't say anything. The jazz band began to play, and the guests began to let loose. Loud laughter, toasts, dancing. Alex would spin the track with Ava as if they were in a movie. I watched everything with a lump in my throat that grew slowly. Lucy tried to strike up a conversation, but I was too distracted watching the details. I noticed that Ava didn't look at Leo. It was not a distraction. It was rejection. Deliberate? No. She avoided him with precision, as if avoiding an comfortable memory. As he passed near our table, why, online stove, now to a day. His eyes passed right past him, as if he didn't exist. And it was there that I felt for the first time that this marriage had something wrong. Something that was not just my feeling. No. There are moments in life when our body feels it before the head understands it. The smell changes. The air is heavy. The silence speaks louder than the music. And we feel it. Oh. And I wanted Omelia Macastro. Now, Lil, to pause just to ask something to those who are listening to this story. Have you ever had this feeling? That the environment smiled on the outside, but cried on the inside? How nice. That you were the only person seeing what no one wanted to see? If you've felt that, now, comment below. He writes only like this. I've lived it. Because I know I'm not alone in this kind of pain. Leo was still clinging to my hand. Don't smile. Wow, he didn't play. A 7-year-old boy with adult eyes. It tore me inside, but I kept pretending, as I always did my whole life, because we learn not to spoil the party of others with our gut feeling. But I was wrong, because what was about to happen It was not a presentiment. It was real. And it started with a simple piece of paper under our desk. But what I had written on it, that could have changed everything forever. Can you imagine what someone would be able to write on a note in the middle of a wedding? On most too, that would put a child's life at risk. As I looked at Leo there at that table, Mo, so small, married, so quiet, Leo, the time when life was different came to my mind like a movie. When Alex met Maria, he was still a half-lost boy, in more hurry than direction. Wow. But she, Maria was peace, a sweet girl with Jabuticaba eyes, who arrived as if she wanted nothing, and, without effort, was occupying a space inside me that even I didn't know was empty. They lived in a modest apartment in Scottsdale, near downtown, with a small backyard where we barbecued on Sundays. I remember the smell of coal mixed with Leo's laughter as a baby, running in a diaper and slippers through the dry grass. Alex was a present father, perhaps even silly with so much love. Too. And Maria was more than a daughter-in-law. It was like a daughter. She called me to ask for a recipe. Nay, sent me a photo of the first rice she burned, laughed at her own mistakes, and cried with me when the milk spilled on the stove and she thought it was the end of the world. She wasn't perfect, but she was human. He had such a big heart that even the neighbors came to ask for advice, and everything seemed to be going to work out until the day of the accident. I was at home, doing laundry, when the phone rang. That dry touch in the middle of the afternoon already made my body freeze. It was from the hospital. Her car was hit by a truck on I-10, returning from work. There was no time, no farewell, these 2 letters, no response. I was the one who had to pick up Leo from daycare. I was the one who held him in my lap when he asked, "Where's Mommy?" Oh no. I was the one who sat with him at the wake, with that heavy sky, watching the rain crumble the flowers on top of the coffin. After that, Alex fell silent. He returned to work as someone who runs away, as someone who digs a hole to bury what he feels. And Leo stayed more with me than with anyone. It was years, just the 2 of us. I woke up in the middle of the night with him calling me from another room, asking if everything was still okay. I said yes, even with my heart in pieces. I taught him to tie his shoelaces, to write his name, to recognize who he really loves. And I swore to myself that I would protect him from everything that was unfair. Everything. When Ava showed up, I already knew that Alex was too needy to see properly. He said it was time to move on, that Leo needed a mother figure. But what Leo needed was not someone to occupy an empty space. It was someone who understood that certain spaces cannot and should not be filled by force. I tried to smile when she came. I tried not to show my concern, but inside me, I was calm. Something was beating crooked. And at that wedding table, with Leo holding my hand, and that strange feeling sending shivers down my spine. All of this came up again. How is it that a child who has already lost so much still had to fight for protection, even on a day that should be joyful? That's what still revolts me. Oh, because there are things that time heals. Yes, but others, time only makes it clearer. And at that moment, ow, between one song and another, I felt as if Maria was there by my side, as if to say, in that little way of hers, quietly, look after him, Diane, want to know. And that's what I did. But would anyone else have the courage to see what I saw under that table? I remember well the first day Ava walked into my house. It was a mild, sunny Sunday. Alex arrived with her and Leo by the hand. She wore a light beige dress, flawless makeup, no, and a smile. One of those that we don't know if it's for us or for an invisible audience. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Kind Omen, turned to you. Diane, she said, blushed, giving me a kiss on the cheek that barely touched the skin. And I still did categorically one, like every mother who has lost too much, shook her hand gently and answered what is expected. Welcome. But inside, something stopped me. Those eyes of hers, they didn't say anything. There was no heat. There was no truth. It was like looking at shop windows. Everything neat, macoradas, beautiful, but empty. Over time, I tried to break that feeling. I told myself that I was the one who was closed. Bitter, yeah, no time, don't disappear. Bitter, and that every new woman in the family needs time. But the harder I tried, the stranger she seemed. Ava always spoke of Alex with exaggerated pride, as if she had won a trophy. No. And with Leo. With Leo, it was a different tone. Forced smiles, unwilling kisses, and a distance that only those who truly love realize. Once, I saw her offer him a chocolate. It's your favorite, Leo. She said it in that overly excited tone, and he, how, it answered in silence, just backed off, saying quietly, Ma, it's not the real one. That phrase stayed in my head for days. What does a child mean by that? That something is wrong, that the affection is false, that the gesture does not convince. But I kept silent. I preferred to believe that it was a phase, adaptation. But the signs didn't stop there. On a Tuesday, Leo returned from the park with a nasty scratch on his arm. Ava dropped him off at my door, said he had tripped on the sand, and got into the car without waiting for an answer. When I took off his shirt to take care of the wound, I saw 2 more purple ones on his body. I asked what had happened. Luciu. He just looked at me. Now, Chase John, bit his lip and said, it was nothing, Grandma. But his eyes told something else. It was as if he were saying, I can't talk. I went to Alex, tried to talk. Maybe you're running too much with everything. I said, Leo is still missing his mother. He smiled tiredly, patted me on the shoulder, and replied, Ava will be good for us. He just needs time. As if love were a matter of calendar. At Easter that year, I made a lunch just for us. Ava arrived late, with expensive gifts, strong perfumes, and a way of occupying the environment as if everything was hers. She brought Leo a basket, all wrapped in golden ribbons. Wow. But he didn't touch it. Oh. He just stood by me, with his hand on my apron. I asked him if he wanted to open it, and he replied, "Oh, I prefer your egg, Grandma." There I knew the boy didn't feel safe in her, and children, when they feel danger, I sit up and can't handle your bow. Do not know how to explain. He just hides. But even with all this, top frown, I kept trying to justify it. She told me that she was exaggerating, that she was just a different woman. Wow, with a different way. No, Adam Sue. And that time might teach her to love. Because, deep down, I wanted it to work. I wanted to see my son happy again. I wanted Leo to have a peaceful house. And, Mom dear, above all, I wanted to stop carrying so much grief in my chest. But there are silences that weigh more than words. And Leo's, it weighed so much. I could hardly breathe near it. He started drawing strange things. Houses without windows, dolls with severed heads, stairs that ended in nothingness. Once, Lucy saw a drawing in which the figure of the woman, who was clearly Ava, had her eyes crossed out. She showed it to me and said, "Ah, that's not normal, Mom." But I asked that we not say anything for now, because if there's one thing that fear does to us, it is teaching to be silent. And it was in this silence that I got used to observing, listening more than talking, collecting signs as if putting together pieces of a puzzle that no one else wants to put together. I saw the way Ava spoke to Leo when she thought no one was looking. Those harsh whispers in the hallway, the tightness in the arm, the icy looks, but I kept quiet because I knew that if I spoke before the time, they would call me bitter, an exaggerated old woman, what, an unbearable mother-in-law. So I stayed there, being the shoulder, the shelter, me, the silence. But everything changed on the wedding day. It was in that overlit room, among linen napkins and shining glasses, that the disguise began to crack. And what I found under that table, it wasn't just a roll. It was the sign that I could no longer pretend not to see. Because how far does a grandmother's silence go? How far can she bear to watch in silence, waiting for the truth to reveal itself? There was a dinner that I will never forget. It was a Friday night. Alex had insisted that we all go to dinner together at the new house. He said he wanted to strengthen the family's bonds, to show that that new beginning would be for everyone. I went. I went because I still believed that if I didn't attend, I would be read as resistant. And at that time, resisting was almost a crime. Lucy went with me, always so careful, carrying a cake she had made with her own hands. Leo was silent, as he always was when he knew Ava would be around. The table was beautiful, I admit. No, white porcelain plates, napkins folded like flowers, tall bowls, but it only took a few minutes for beauty to fall apart. Ava greeted me with that window smile and took the plate from my hand, saying loudly, for everyone to hear, "Wow." Leave it. Diane, old woman, you don't have to make an effort anymore. Sit there. Before you fall. They pretended to laugh, even Lucy. But I saw the blush on her face. I saw the discomfort trying to hide behind the kindness. I smiled too, because that's what we do when we're old. Swallow it. Not one. But inside, one. A little bit of shame lit up. Sit. Whoa, we said you got. And so, eat. Conversations came and went, always revolving around Avas achievements, the new company, the trips, the contacts. At a certain point, they started talking about the decoration of the house. I, without malice, commented that perhaps the paintings were too large to weigh on the environment. She turned her face and let go, laughing with her friends. Oh, guys, my mother-in-law is one of those. You know? He beats everything, but doesn't understand anything about style. She really likes crochet and a magnet fridge. It was as if they had pushed me against the wall, but with a hug, mean, and no one saw it. Alex laughed. Of course. He always laughed at her jokes, as if it was a relief to see his mother being put in her place. And I understood that. In that house, my place was this: the corner, the limit, limit or down, respect forgotten. Leo was quiet, pushing the food with his fork. Ava told him to eat everything. He said he didn't want to. She replied, in a dry voice. Leon sit and say, yes, you will eat. Leo, ante cocktail. You're not spoiled baby anymore. I swallowed hard. Nurse, I looked at Lucy. Wow. She looked away. One. I said cell. There, me, and salt, and how. At that dinner, I saw how uncomfortable my presence was. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I remembered who they once were. Because I was the mirror of the past that Ava wanted to erase. After dinner, rushed come, Lisel. While Alex was doing the dishes distractedly, I went to arrange things on the table. I grabbed a napkin that had fallen to the floor, bent down slowly, and when I got up, Mom, I heard Ava saying in the hallway, she's a burden. It just gets in the way. It was low, almost inaudible, but enough to cut the night in two. On the way home, Leo slept on my lap. Lucy, from the front seat, asked me if I was okay. I just replied, I am. My daughter, Norris, getting good memory, Marcia, because that's what was left for me. Remember, write it down mentally, store silently, now, and Lily, look, I'm here, opening my heart, telling my story with all the wounds exposed. If you're listening, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, because I still have a lot to tell you. Stories that hurt, but that also teach. That night, lying in my bed, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I had heard in Leo's eyes, in Lucy's discomfort, and I asked myself, No. How much longer does a grandmother need to pretend not to see, just to keep the peace? But what I didn't know, the war had already begun, and the Viferdam, while there to my thought was it, and the first bomb was about to fall, folded into 4 pieces of paper, right there, under the table. Wow. It was on an ordinary day that fear knocked on the door of my soul without asking permission. Ha! I had taken Leo to the pediatric office, as I always did every 2 months. Routine checkup. No big deal. Calm down. Condición conejo. He was healthy, but quiet. Always very quiet. When the doctor finished the exams and released us, I took the bag, held his hand, and we went out to the waiting room. Ava was already there, with that pose of hers, sitting upright, her legs crossed, looking at her phone as if she were solving the world's problems. When Leo saw me hesitate, he squeezed my hand tighter. I felt it. Wow. It was as if he asked, without sound, "Don't leave me." She stood up, smiled artificially, and said, "Well, come on, Leo." Where? He didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the floor. Ow! His eyelids trembling when she insisted and stretched out her hand to him. He took a step back, turned his face and cried softly, "I don't want to go with her, Grandma. I don't like her voice when Daddy isn't there." At that moment, I froze. The world went on outside. Cars, noises, children passing by with balloons in their hands. But inside me, everything was muted. I bent down, held his face, and asked calmly, "Does she yell at you, my love?" He shook his head. No. Tears flowing. "It looks different. It gets tough. Tell me to shut up. He says that I give work." I tried not to tremble. I kissed his forehead and said everything was fine, even though I didn't believe it. Ava approached with that fake smile and asked, "Did something happen?" I said, "Leo, he doesn't want to go." She laughed. "Children make drama, Caius," and he pulled Leo by the arm with forced delicacy. He went, but he looked back. That little look at him, it broke me into 1,000 pieces. On the same day, I called Alex. He said we needed to talk. He showed up hours later, tired from work, already irritated before I even opened my mouth. I told him what Leo said, that he was scared, wonderfully withdrawn, and it's so calm, and that Ava changed her behavior when he wasn't around. Alex sighed loudly, ran his hand over his face, and replied, "Oh, Mom, you're creating things in your head. Ava is trying too hard, and you need to stop sabotaging." Sabotage? That word echoed in my chest as if it were a slap. He looked at me as if I was the problem. That I took care of that boy from the first step, that I saw Mary being buried, that I kept the pains of the house to protect his future. Now, I was seen as a threat. I kept quiet, as I always was. That same week, Lucy tried to talk to Leo. She has a very calm manner, like someone who waters flowers. She sat with him on the living room floor. I just started for God. spread the toys, and asked, "Was, is everything okay with Ava?" He did not answer. He just looked at the red cart and shook his head very slowly. 2 days later, I found the bathroom in my house locked. I knocked. Lazarity suras om unso archaptera. Adwonatatatidam. I called. Nashatown. Leosin. I called. No one answered. No one answered. My heart raced. I took the spare key, opened it slowly. And there he was, sitting on the cold floor, hugging the toy car, with red eyes and short breath. I knelt down, hugged him with all the care in the world. Loud. Anstigeshuama. I have come to Saturday. I didn't ask anything. I just stood there, in silence. And he said, almost voiceless, "Am afraid to leave? No. Fear. A 7-year-old child afraid to return to his father's house. That night, while he slept on my lap, I decided that I would observe every detail, that he wouldn't say anything more to Alex, because he didn't want to listen. But I would listen. I would see. I would remember everything, because if I couldn't prove it, I could wait. Silence became my shield, but memory became my weapon, and I began to write down in my head every gesture, every phrase, every change in tone, because if the world didn't want to see it, I would show it. Nihumo. I don't show I would dissect to Soto. And it was in this waking state that I arrived at the wedding day, with the eyes of those who no longer sleep in peace. And what Leo showed me in that room, it was all I needed to be sure. But who would have the courage to believe an old woman? Who would listen to me? Before it was too late, the music was louder than before, and the whole hall seemed shrouded in a haze of brightness and distraction. The guests laughed, toasted, danced as if life were a commercial for happiness. But at table 6, where I was sitting with Leo and Lucy, I told Ireton to porch Stockholm, the world was silent, new, a heavy, lively, suffocating silence. Leo had been too quiet. His eyes ran around the room as if looking for something. I'm so sure that you know cat. Was it when Count store statue wasn't stuck to you? Or someone? Down. I had already learned to recognize that way. He only did it when he was afraid. That's when he leaned in slowly. I stepped an outside Christ, pulled my sleeve gently and said, almost voiceless, "Grandma, you didn't look under the table, did you?" I froze. Why, my love? One? He just looked into my eyes. He said nothing else, but his hand trembled. Whoa. And that look of dread, made me act without thinking. I lowered my head, discreetly lifted the white tablecloth that covered the table to the floor. I had to strain my eyes because of the dim light. That's when I saw a crumpled piece of paper, and one channel, folded in 4, leaning against the foot of my chair. Got. It was a simple note, written with blue ballpoint pen. The words were short, dry, emotionless. Wow. Table 6, add shrimp to the child's plate. I felt my heart stop. Literally. Wow. Can't see what war. That's copter zone. Leo is allergic to shrimp. Seriously, neither saw. Top in the cow. One reaction can close your throat in minutes. A single bite, and my grandson would be fighting for his life. The note fell out of my hand. But I picked it up again with trembling fingers. I took a deep breath, swallowed the scream that rose up my throat, and looked at his plate. Not yet served. Lucy? Ow, I whispered. Now. She looked at me. Ow. Startled by my tone. Leo. Keep an eye on Leo. He doesn't let anyone bring anything to him. Nothing. She nodded. No. And her face changed. A pure fear appeared in my girl's eyes. I looked around. The waiters approached with covered trays. The kitchen was in the back, and I knew that Leo's dish must already be being prepared. At that moment, I was sure someone there wanted to hurt my grandson, and it was not an accident. You who have been listening to me so far, pay attention. Well, what I'm going to tell you now is the part where everything will come, because until that moment, I still doubted my impressions. I still thought I could be exaggerating, but after that note, there was no turning back. If I were you, I'd stay with me until the end. How? Because there's a moment in this story that changes everything, and it's coming. With the note in my hands and my heart racing, I stood up slowly. I tried not to attract attention, but inside, my whole body screamed. I knew I needed to run to the kitchen, prevent that dish from reaching the table, but he also knew that he could not accuse anyone without evidence. I stopped for a second. I closed my eyes, breathed, and it was at that moment that I heard the waiter approaching with Leo's tray. What would you do if you were me? What if you knew that the dish you are about to serve to your grandson could kill him? Because in that second, I had to make a decision, and there was no more time. I stood up from the table with the note in my hand, trying to appear calm, but feeling my legs weigh like lead. I handed Leo over to Lucy's care with a whisper. Don't let anyone get close to him. No one. She asked no questions. She only held the boy with a firm arm, her attentive gaze, as if she already knew that something was very wrong. I walked between the tables with my head high. But inside, I trembled. The lights in the room seemed too bright, the noise of the music too loud, as if everything was trying to distract me from what I needed to do. I crossed the hallway toward the service door, pushed hard, and entered the kitchen area. Was stunned. The heat of the pots, the smell of the spices, the movement of the waiters, everything there seemed part of another world. I showed the note to the boy who moments before had passed by our table. A tall young man, with blonde hair tied in a bun, sweating inside his white uniform. He read it. Nasty, Mortendani, and at the same time, Noose turned pale. Who gave you that? I asked firmly. He hesitated. He looked around, as if seeking protection. A woman, brunette, said you are no calm. Tall. He said it was a special request from the chef. that the boy had asked for. Do you remember her? He nodded. No doubt. How? Slowly. I think so. If I see it again, wow. I remember. Wow. Then come with me. I said, no, no, Tom. We returned together along a side path, skirting the columns of the hall. He was coming behind me, nervous, his eyes running across the tables. When we arrived at the central area, I asked him to look calmly. Wanted what? Endurance. You can point. No rush. He watched, one by one. A fancy pressure. I will not tarnish your working chair. Until he stopped, and with an almost imperceptible movement, he lifted his chin towards the main table. Wow, there was Ava, laughing, toasting, in a navy blue dress that shone under the crystal chandeliers, surrounded by friends, throwing her hair to the side, numb, as if she had just told a wonderful joke. I stared at that smile, like someone who stares at a gun. She tried to kill my grandson, my Leo. The blood was gone from my face. For a moment, well, I thought I was going to faint right there. But something inside me, something that lives only in those who have lost a lot and still continue to stand, held me back. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just breathed. And in that breath, why, I decided, I'd sue. There would be no scandal. There would be justice. Silent, no, cold, and firm justice. No, there are times in life when screaming is not useful. It scares, but it doesn't solve. And a grandmother who really loves, she doesn't scream. She observes, calculates, waits, and it acts. I turned to the boy and thanked him. I asked him not to comment to anyone, and he promised. I went back to my desk as if nothing had happened. Leo was still with Lucy, now, playing with the juice straw, oblivious to the size of the shadow that passed by him. I sat down. Leo folded the note calmly. Nisiri, whilst down, put it inside my bag. And there, looking at Eva in the distance, I understood everything. She wanted to erase Maria from history. She wanted to erase Leo, because Leo was the living memory of the true love that my son had. And she, with all her beauty and sophistication, never got what Maria had effortlessly. Alex Hart, now listen to what I'm going to tell you from the heart. When a woman tries to erase a child out of envy, it's not just evil, it's poison. It is a cruelty that has no name. And if you've ever been through something similar, if you've ever seen someone being cruel to a child because of jealousy, dispute, or ego, comment below. He writes to me like this. Very simply, I am Lutakanon. I agree, because there are things that only those who have lived understand. That night, I promised myself she wouldn't lay a finger on my grandson anymore. But how to do it without anyone suspecting it? Because from then on, everything had to be planned carefully. And the first step would be taken the moment the cake was cut. But would she realize that I already knew everything? I returned to the table with slow steps, as if carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. But I smiled. On the outside, I smiled hard, because in that environment, where everything was appearance and shine, the pain of a grandmother could not make noise. Leo was still playing with the juice straw, but his eyes were still alert, full of that fear that a good child should not know. I bent down to him, held his hand tightly, not so much to hurt, but enough for him to feel that I was there, that I was his shield. I hugged him, a long, long hug, one of those that we only give when we are sure that by little, very little, loud, we did not lose everything. You're safe, my love. Grandma is here, and no one else will hurt you. He didn't say anything. He just closed his eyes and leaned his forehead against my shoulder. Moss. I looked up. Moss. And across the room, I saw Alex smiling next to Ava, all proud of his new wife. He raised his glass, talked to the guests, received greetings. He had no idea. No. And for a second, a single second, until it, my heart wanted to explode, but I swallowed hard. Then nobody seen. I sat next to Lucy, who immediately noticed my state. I put my hand on hers, firm, there and well. How my tears. Keep him, I whispered. I need to act. She asked no questions. He just nodded. Nodded he saw how. Leo was still trembling, as if his body, so small, Leo stood, could still smell danger. I closed my eyes, and at that moment, Mary came. It came as a memory, as pain, as presence. I saw her in the backyard of the old house, her apron smeared with sauce and her hair tied up in a messy bun. I saw her laughing with Alex. I saw her dancing with Leo on her lap, whirling around the room on Sundays. I saw her looking at me. Oh, on that day of the burial, I'd seen the one sober down, with her eyes that asked, Lou, take care of him for me. And I took care of it. God knows I took care of it. Every night, sleepless, every fever, every fear of his, I was there. Nice eternal time. One did not buckle to other what talks to him. And now, he was almost lost, out of envy, by poison. For a woman who never knew what it was to love. There is no greater pain than knowing that your blood has been harmed, and you almost didn't see it. You who are listening to me so far, maybe you understand what this silence that screams inside is. That moment when everything looks the same on the outside. But inside you everything is in ruins. Because the worst thing is not when they shout at us in the face. The worst, that's when they hurt us in silence. And that's why, in that moment, sitting there with a broken heart and the world pretending to party around me, I knew it was my turn, not to scream, but to show who I was. The woman who always kept silent, but he never forgot, knew. The party continued. The cake was brought. The flashes went off. Ava threw the bouquet to perfection. as if acting out a fairy tale commercial. But fairy tales always hide a witch, and it is not always in the forest. Sometimes she is sitting next to her fiancé, but that grandmother over there, she was no princess. She was the warrior who survived by burying a daughter-in-law, raising a grandson alone, and now was ready. The question that stayed with me that night was, how do you unmask someone without saying a single word? I left the room without saying a word. Wow. The sound of the music grew quieter as my footsteps took me out. When the door closed behind me, I felt an almost sacred silence. The dry desert air enveloped me like a harsh embrace. The amber lights of the parking lot illuminated the stones of the wall where I leaned. There, alone, between the distant sound of cars and the warm breeze that blew lightly, I closed my eyes and didn't cry. I didn't scream. The pain no longer tore me apart as it used to. Now, it molded me. I closed my hands tightly, feeling the texture of my own skin, marked by the years, the losses, the choices, and I understood. No, I couldn't pretend anymore. He could no longer protect his appearance at the expense of the truth. Everything I had feared since Ava entered that house was confirmed in that note. She tried to erase Leo, erase the son of the woman who came before. And if she was capable of that, what else could she do? There, Amlin, at that exact moment, something inside me died. The woman who accepted it in silence, the one who smiled on the outside while bleeding on the inside. Catafalque, he stayed right there in the shadow of that wall, the one that went back into the hall. After a few minutes was another. It was the woman who knows she doesn't need to scream to be heard. The woman who does not fight with fury, but with memory. I took a deep breath. I reviewed. Inside me. Wow. Every detail since the day Ava appeared. The show. My dearness, Thomas Delgoifau. The cold looks. The empty compliments. The cutting phrases said as a joke. The way she slowly seeped into the cracks of our pain, using charm as poison. I remembered the first dinner in which she corrected Leo harshly, saying that men don't cry. I remembered the day he came back from the park, with his knees scraped and his eyes wet, without saying what had happened. Well, I remembered the time when she said, laughing, that spoiled children become weak adults. Everything there, every scene, every word, kept in me like a dossier of silence. And now, I had the missing piece, the ticket, the attempt, the proof. But I also knew no one would believe this alone. Ava was smart. He knew how to dance in the eyes of others. I knew how to smile at Alex in a way that erased all his doubts. If I entered that party accusing the bitter mother-in-law, the jealous old woman, so no, there would be no confrontation. There would be a strategy. I was going to reap everything. Information, testimonies, observations, and when the right time came, she herself would dismantle before everyone's eyes, because the truth when it arrives in one piece, does not need to be shouted. It just needs to be shown. And that's what I'm going to do. But first, if this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, will it help me to carry it forward? Like and subscribe here to the channel. This makes more difference than you think. That night, I returned to the hall with light steps, not because the pain had passed, but because I already knew what to do with it. And who knows the real pain? He learns to use it as a compass. The only question left was, who else but me would be about to find out who Ava really is? I returned to the hall without anyone noticing that anything had changed. My shoulders were erect, my face serene. Old Diane, the one who smiled so as not to bother me, still lived in that body. But now she went hand in hand with another, with the one who saw the shadow of a child in the bathroom, with the one who read a note that he could kill. I passed among the guests as if looking for a glass of wine or going to the bathroom, but my every step was calculated. I went to the main lobby, where the events service desk was. A gentleman in a suit, gray hair, and a professional air attended me with a usual smile. Can I help with something? My mom? Yes, but what I'm going to ask for now needs to be recorded. I pulled the ticket out of my bag carefully. I handed it to him unhurriedly, looking him in the eye. That was left on my desk. Table 6. It indicates that shrimp should be placed on the plate of a severely allergic child. The man read. His eyes narrowed. Nam, this is very serious. I know. That is why I need this roll to be preserved. It cannot be thrown away. Torn? Pure. Wet? Nay. I need them to authenticate him, to identify the origin, any detail. Someone from the staff needs to be aware of what is happening. He nodded. Now, the whale prescient. Now, with a serious expression, I can call the person responsible for documentation security. It can scan, authenticate with internal code. Do it now. And one more thing. I leaned my body and said in a low voice, the waiter who took this order to the kitchen, Wantao, I need him to repeat what he told me in front of someone else. I went to the side aisle where he was serving the bun boy, still visibly nervous. Son, I said, in that tone that only a grandmother knows how to use. Can you help me with something? The same one you told me, Mom. He only repeats it now, in front of someone who can write it down properly. He agreed. Together, no. We returned to the lobby. The manager heard everything. The note was already being scanned by an internal security official who brought a special envelope, one of those with a numbered seal. How? It was as if my every step began to build a wall, not stones, but of truths. I also wanted to confirm with the kitchen. I returned to the corridor that gave access to the preparation of the dishes, excused myself, and asked to talk to the chef, a Latin gentleman with a firm speech and quick gestures. Sorry to bother. Did you receive any notes about allergies or special instructions for table 6? He scratched his beard and replied, Went to I. Yes, There was a paper with guidance for the shrimp. Ah, it was strange, because usually special requests are to remove, not to add. But as it was written clearly and signed with staff code, we thought it was official. I took a deep breath. This ticket is now being authenticated. Not it will, Anna. And Sergio watched you. Would you mind putting on record that it was delivered to your team, and that the order was received by the kitchen? He shook his head. Not, did you, Anne? Of course not. Ill. Write it down. This needs to be verified. Now, thanked. I returned to the lobby. I photographed the ticket from every possible angle before it was sealed. Neutral, pen, shadow-free lighting with a focus on the strokes of the pen. Wow, I saved it on my cell phone. And that calm in the cloud. No, in email. I could be old, but I never was stupid. No. Finally, before returning to the room, I asked the waiter for a minute. Wow. Why? Can I record you? With your permission? Just explaining what you saw, what they said, what they delivered to you. He hesitated. Oh, it's to protect a child. Oh, is that it? He nodded. Well, I recorded it with my cell phone. And I haven't seen out what did she say. Low voice. Him talking directly. He said that the tall woman, how, in a navy blue dress, handed over the note saying that it was for the chef. Saved. 2 copies. One in Google Drive. Another on the card. And when I finished all that, I went back inside. Oh, it's a bacchanadium. Ava was still smiling, but I already had the truth in my hands. No, there are stories that we only understand when we put all the pieces together. And sometimes the missing piece is just courage. If you're still with me here, wow, it's because this story also pokes you inside. And if I can give you one piece of advice right now, well, it's this. Noah, continue to the end. Because what I found out after that, it changed everything. And that's when I realized if she was capable of doing that with Leo, what else would she hide from Alex? I left the lobby in silence, like someone going to the bathroom. But deep down, I just wanted to breathe a little away from the strong perfume of the flowers and the bitter taste of that party. The side hallway was less busy, with lower light and a smell of old carpet. I walked slowly, no, my eyes trying not to find anyone, when I heard, coming from the support room next door, a suppressed cry, voice of a young, nervous woman. How? Speaking fast as if trying to hide something before it's too late. The door was ajar. Stopped. I could move on. Nice. Well, I could pretend I didn't hear anything. But a real grandmother feels it when she has more behind her. And there it was. I pulled over carefully, without making a sound. No. The tearful voice was that of Gloria, Ava's sister. No, not her sister. She was talking to someone I couldn't see, maybe a friend of the staff. Well, I swear I only handed over the paper because she asked me to. She said it was a message from the chef. I didn't even read it. I didn't know it was. That could do harm. The other tried to calm her down, but You said the waiter thought it was strange. Yes, but I just wanted to help. She said it was a surprise for Alex, that it was going to be funny. I thought it was a joke. I didn't imagine it would be so serious. I felt my body freeze. I opened the door calmly. Madonna, say how. Lori. She got scared. No. Took a step back, like a child caught red-handed. Well, ha. Don't scream. No. And the I spoke tenderly, no, but firmly. I didn't come to accuse you. I came to understand. Uh, She trembled. Knew. I didn't know. I know. But now you know. And he needs to decide which side he wants to be on. She hesitated, saw, looked down at her feet. It was Ava who asked me. She called me into the room. Before the ceremony, well, he said it was a special ticket for the chef, which had to do with the children's menu. Wow, that Leo would like it. He handed it to me doubled, told me to give it to a waiter with a bun. Now, sit down, and Silko, that he would know what to do. I closed my eyes for a second. Had she talked about Leo before? Gloria shook her head. Yes, sometimes. He said that he was a burden, that he left Alex stuck in the past. An anchor, what Harland, that she wanted to start her life clean. That child who is not one of us only gets in the way. She fell silent, eyes teary. I never thought she was capable of this. I thought it was just anger. Loose words. But now, oh my God, I approached, held her hands. You were part of it, even if you didn't want to. But he has a choice now, and your choice can protect Leo. She cried more. And he said to me, oh, Tess, if you need me to tell someone about this, I'll tell you. And I'm ashamed. Ah, but I tell you, I thanked him. Why, and there, with those words coming out of her own sister's mouth, I understood that what happened that night was not impulse. It was flat. She premeditated. No, she used her own sister not to get her hands dirty. She architected it, and that changes everything. Lean me here for a moment. Let me tell you something. There are memories that don't leave us. They remain like an old smell in stored clothes. We can even pretend to forget, but when we least expect it, they come back. Oh, do you have any memories like that? One of those that marked you forever, that you never told anyone, but that sometimes comes back as if it were yesterday? If you have, share it with me here in the comments. He just writes I have, or I've seen it happen. Because when we share memory, it becomes a bridge. That night, in the middle of the Arizona desert, between the partying laughter and distracted looks, I discovered that what they did to Leo was deeper, darker, more cruel than I imagined. And a voice inside me said, if she was ever able to do this, even before she got married, what will she do now that she feels she owns everything? I returned to the party with my soul red hot, but my face calm, the kind of calm that only comes after the pain takes up residence. and we learned to walk with it without making noise. I walked around the room as if going to get an extra napkin or greet some distant relative. My gaze passed by happy faces, by glasses raising toasts, and by that laughter that disguises everything that is rotten inside. And there she was, Ava, beaming in the middle of the floor, Ham, dancing with her friends as if the whole world was hers. I approached slowly, no, lightly, touched his arm. Ava, can I ask you for a minute? There's something I need to show you. She hesitated, but she came, with that rehearsed elegance, with the firm steps of someone who thinks he dominates the scene. I took her to one of the reserved rooms of the conference hall east, at the back of the room, where the lighting was soft and no one would enter by chance. I closed the door. Now, Dee, what's wrong? What's wrong? Diane, sit down. Noi. Well, she laughed, a laugh out of the corner of her mouth. Is everything okay? It looks so serious. I put my bag on the chair and carefully removed it. The laminated ticket, printed with the stamp of the event center, the waiter's signed account, Lou, photos with saved metadata, and a small audio recorder with Gloria's voice confessing what she did. I put everything on the table. How? One by one, like cards turned over in a game in which the other person has already lost, but has not yet noticed. She looked. Oh, he swallowed. What's this? Diane? The answer to a question I never wanted to ask, but that you forced. She tried to laugh. You? Are you investigating me? For a little paper? Are you taking it that seriously? No, that's exaggeration. I folded my hands on the table. I'm not exaggerating. I'm protecting my grandson. What's apart on the study terminal card. Unatashed I stare. She stood up, took 2 steps away, as if she needed to breathe. That's all in your head. You're still stuck in the past, in that loss. You need help. Diane, Maria Soin, Vicentau. He needs to get over Maria's death. I kept looking at her, Juan, in silence, because there are things we don't discuss. We just let the truth weigh in. Do you think you can blackmail me with this? She said. I didn't do anything. You have no way to prove intent. I'm not here to accuse you. Ava, not even to ask for explanations. She turned her face away, surprised me. No, no, no. I'm here to let you know. I stopped for a second, looked straight into her eyes. Leo is protected. Wow. And everything that was done tonight is saved. Even in the right places. I just came to look you in the eye and show you what you didn't count. That an old, quiet, no, invisible woman like me, how, sees everything, and he remembers everything. She tried to laugh again, but the laugh failed her throat. You're crazy, maybe, but I'm crazy about evidence. She turned pale. Alex will never believe you. I stood up. Maybe not now, but one day he will see. And when that happens, I want you to remember this room, from that silence of this truth. I started to put the documents back in my bag, with the calm of someone who folds clothes before leaving. You can continue your party. You can continue with your toasts, with your lies well passed on lipstick. But what did you try to do? It will not pass. She stood there, while motionless, looking at me as if she were facing something she had never really seen. A woman who doesn't bend over. And if you touch a hair of Leo's, Ava, only one. I closed the bag. I'll take you apart. And I left. Because sometimes the strongest is not the one who screams. It is the one who leaves in silence, leaving the guilt to echo alone on the ground. What she did in that room afterwards, I don't know, but I know what she would do from then on, because a woman like her never accepts losing control. The question that hammered in my head as I returned to the room with a firm step was only one. One, what would she be able to do now, knowing that I was one step ahead? I returned to the hall with my heart beating so loud that it seemed that everyone was going to hear. But on the outside, I was stone. Wow. The party continued with their forced smiles. The waiters began to circulate with the trays, and the master of ceremonies, a friendly young man in a light gray jacket, was already positioned at the microphone to announce the dinner. I walked up to him, touched his arm gently, and said quietly, I need a minute, just one. He looked confused, but he saw firmness in my eyes. I grabbed the microphone with both hands, took a deep breath, and looked at that audience. 200 smiling faces, some already numb with wine, others laughing without knowing what they were laughing. And then I spoke. Good evening. I'm sorry for the interruption. Well, I'm Diana, even Diane, mother of the groom, and grandmother of little Leo. Some waved. Wow. Others just waited. My voice was firm. Anya. No shaking. No tears. I wouldn't take this time if it wasn't absolutely necessary. But today, on the day we were supposed to celebrate love and a new beginning, something very serious happened. I saw the gazes move. The cutlery stop in the air, under table number 6, where I sat with my grandson. I found a note, a paper with instructions for adding shrimp to a child's plate. A small reaction ran through the hall. The detail is that this child, my grandson Leo, has a severe allergy to crustaceans. A single bite could lead to his death. Someone gasped. Others looked at each other. This note was not a mistake by the kitchen. Wow. It was delivered by a guest to a specific waiter. With clear orders, I have the recorded statement of the employee, the authentication of the paper made by the event manager, the chef's report, and the recognition of the person involved. Who is now here? I looked at Ava. She was pale, his eyes running from one side to the other. Now pale, as if looking for an escape route. I will not point fingers publicly, out of respect for the family and the child involved. But I ask that the security cameras be accessed and that no evidence of this evening be discarded. Ava stepped forward. Diane milked up down. Please. This is absurd. A deception. You're shaken. Kept. I'm not shaken. Now, the old city so Ava, Abba, I am vigilant. Wow. And it's different. The hall plunged into an icy silence. Not even the waiters moved anymore. The master of ceremonies was motionless. Alex stood up, one down, confused. Mom, what are you talking about? I looked at him. Son, asked Leo. All eyes turned to my grandson, so small, in that rented suit. And there, in front of that crowd, oh, he just lowered his head and held Lucy's hand tightly. He said nothing, but his silence spoke loudly. Oh, because there are truths that don't need sound. Ava tried to laugh. This is a theater, a staging. When I wanted the crowd, but no one laughed with her. Why? Because the party was over. Now, and for the first time, she was naked on stage, and I knew what would come after that. It wouldn't be pretty. The question I asked myself as I returned the microphone to the master of ceremonies was simple. No, was simple. When the mask falls like this, in front of everyone, what is left for those who only knew how to live hidden behind her? Ava stood there for a moment, as if the world had frozen around her. Nah. And suddenly, everything that was control slipped from her fingers like water. She tried to laugh again, but the laughter didn't come any easier. Her skin looked lighter, as if the blood was gone. And then she did what manipulative people usually do when they are cornered. She changed her tune from one second to the next. Her voice trembled. Yeah. Her eyes filled with water, and she shook her head as if she was being wronged by the universe. That's a misunderstanding. My God, he said, Wayne, with his hand on his chest. No, as if her heart was in pieces. It was just a joke. I swear, I didn't even know Leah was allergic like that. Lie? She knew. I said it myself more than once. She turned to Alex. Love, you believe me, right? Your mother is confused. You know how she gets with these things from the past. Alex looked stunned. Aw. He looked from me to her, back to Leo. Lucy shook the boy's hand as if holding the world so he wouldn't fall. Ava took another step. And that note? This may have been planted. Don't you see? This may have all been a trap against me. At that moment, the waiter appeared next to the event manager. He stepped forward. Lund, hi, now, cleared his throat and spoke calmly. Oh, I received this note directly from the hands of a girl who was later identified as Mrs. Ava's sister. She said it was special instruction for the chef. I just followed the guidance. The hall murmured, aye. The tension in the air was so thick that you could cut it with the knife of the wedding cake. Ava turned toward her sister, who was standing there. Oh, would you not just huddled in a corner? Aye. Her eyes red. No. Glory. He says that this is a lie. Speech. But Gloria only closed her eyes for a moment, and in a voice lower than the whisper of a lament, said, Wendell, on the count. Yes, I did. You asked me. Ava took a step back, and there was security handle Q. In that second, we so calm. I saw. Her mask cracked, and when she spoke again, ah, she was no longer the woman who knew how to play charming. It was another. What? This boy has always been strange. He always invented things to attract attention. He, now, he is obsessive. He lives making drama. He doesn't accept me because he's spoiled. Indignation ran through the hall like a wave. The pastor frowned. Our eyes. Ava's mother lowered her head in shame, and even the guests who didn't even know who I was let out little grumbles of disapproval. Ava looked around. My cerno ashui so bon, seeking support. Wow. But no one else was with her. No. Neither did Alex. He kept looking at Leo, standing still, trying to understand what he still didn't want to believe. And me? Oh, I just took a deep breath. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't accuse. Because I knew the voice of time was speaking for me. What? And there are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling once to Hashirans, we help another heart to breathe. So if this story is making sense to you, help me move it forward. Like this video and subscribe here to the channel. This makes more difference than you think. Ava ran out of the room, tugging at her dress angrily, tripping over her own heels. The makeup smudged, the eyes in fury, but I didn't go after it, because those who lie need to run. Who has truth? It just stays. But the truth had yet to get anywhere. My son's heart. Nice down, Herokintana, Obredwanish. And it was there that everything would be decided. Would he, in the face of everything, finally see the hall, which minutes before had seemed like a dream set? White flowers, linen tablecloths, candles flickering in tall glasses, was now shrouded in a silence that is only heard when the truth enters. A silence that weighs down, that breaks the spell and reveals what has always been there. But no one wanted to see. Alex was standing next to me. Oh, his gaze lost, as if he was still trying to find in the back of his mind some logical explanation for it all. But logic does not live where evil hides. The event manager approached with a tablet in his hands. He said in a serious, respectful voice that the images of the kitchen and the side corridor had been located, and that, with Alex's permission, since his name was in the party's contract, the images could be shown to confirm the reports. Alex just shook his head, as if he no longer has the strength to deny it. We all gathered around the small screen. Some family members, the pastor, yes, Madame, two friends of the groom, and Gloria herself, who trembled, but remained. And there it was, the image clear, uncut, Ava handing the note to her sister. With a forced smile on her face and a quick gesture, as if giving any instruction. Gloria takes the paper, looks, hesitates, but he walks up to the waiter. Now, delivery is made. The clerk keeps the note in his pocket. Now, as he had told, when the recording ended, no one said anything. He didn't need to. Ava tried to get up, tried to get out of there, but was restrained by her own mother and an older aunt, who asked her, firmly and embarrassingly in her eyes, to stay. That he listened? No. I returned to the salon, with Alex by my side. Leo, Sheldon, still holding Lucy's hand, was waiting for us at the table. The party, near Cinnabar, of course, no longer existed. Some guests left. Others stayed out of sheer need to understand what they had witnessed. I climbed 3 steps to the small stage where the band had left their instruments. There was no more music, only truth. I have only one more thing to say. My voice didn't need a microphone. She came out clean, straight from her chest. No, life forgives many things. It even forgives mistakes made out of ignorance. But he does not forgive anyone who tries to eliminate an innocent child. People listened standing. Today, Leo is here, alive, because he was afraid, because he felt in his body what adults don't always see with his eyes, because that small and pure soul realized what evil tries to hide behind flowers and makeup. I looked at him, and I saw his eyes shining, not crying, but courageous. He didn't speak loudly. He didn't scream. He just gave me his hand and whispered. I took a deep breath, and I listened. I paused for a moment, looked around, washing eyes, and said in a soft voice, how lucky he was to have been able to warn me. But I wonder, how many other children can't? How many silent screams do we hear because we are too busy celebrating what seems perfect? I sighed. Nokon. Sigidiri, Whale Chapter Kakari. I sighed. If you're listening to this right now, and have you ever felt that knot in your chest? That intuition that prevents you from sleeping. Believe in it, Mom. Well, the note, I hit of his and Stetapine. I lowered my eyes. I held Leo's hand there on stage and finished. Because when a child is in danger, the only right answer is to protect. And it was at that moment that I realized that something inside me had changed forever. The Diane, who has always been called dramatic, overprotective, now stubborn, lie. Now it was only one thing. Grandmother, well, our mother, and being a grandmother. Wow. At that moment, my soon, was my greatest title, because at the end of the day, there are stories that hurt us, but it also has stories that set us free. And this one is not over yet. Do you know why? Because even when the truth blows out, there is still someone who needs to make a decision. Alex, will he, after all, be able to look at Ava in the same way? Alex didn't say anything at that moment. He stood there, next to the table where the dinner dishes were already cold, staring at nothing, his shoulders weighing as if they suddenly carried the weight of all the mistakes he refused to see. When the manager returned and informed him that the police had been called by protocol, since there was a risk to a child's life and sufficient evidence, he just nodded. Ava, who was still in the hallway, was trying to extricate herself from the hands of her own family. I cried loudly now, but it was a different cry. Soon, what a friend. It wasn't pain. It was the desperation of those who lost control. That's absurd, she screamed, her makeup melting and her heels in her hand. I'm going to sue you. This is a setup. I'm the victim here. But no one else answered. No one defended it. Neither her mother, Neo Tanwad, Pesadiva, nor her aunt, who used to praise her posture, nor her friends who at the beginning of the day posed with her in the photos, smiling with glasses. The event's internal security guard, along with one of the oldest employees, led Ava out, without force, without pushing, just firmness. She was carried along the side of the parking lot, under the silent eyes of an audience that was no longer complicit in the disguise. And at that moment, with the lights on the dance floor still on, but no one dancing, how? The marriage is over. Wow. No music, no toast, no cake cutting. It ended up as everything that is a lie ends, in ruins. Why? Alex sat on the edge of the stage. He stared at his own hands. He didn't talk to me, not even with Leo. He only lowered his head. Nan, and for the first time in many years, he cried like a boy. I approached slowly. No, I put my hand on his shoulder. Mom, I didn't say I told you so. I didn't say you should have listened to me, because a mother's hurt is not good to poison the child. Nick, it serves to protect. The only thing I whispered was, she could have killed your son. And he, Mom, with his eyes still teary, replied, Nick, and I would have let it. At that moment, the man was no longer enchanted by the image of a perfect wife. There was a father, a repentant father, in the days that followed. Now, the story spread, discreet but firm. People from the neighborhood commenting in whispers. Did you know what happened at Ava's wedding? They say it was serious. Thing with the boy, the grandmother who discovered everything. The Amanautam on the Bididwabhias Akaditinakdaisertsea. The police took statements. The note was delivered as evidence, along with the images and audio of the sister. A lawyer known to the community took on the case as a defense of Leo's integrity. Ava was formally called to testify, and so, little by little, the truth is no longer just a conversation between a few, and it has become the responsibility of the law. She tried to claim that it was just a menu instruction, that he didn't know about the allergy. But Leo's pediatrician, who had been following the case for years, wrote a detailed report on the risk. The restaurant itself, in writing, confirmed that it had been instructed not to serve shrimp on the child's table. There was no argument left. The process ran discreetly, but the consequences were clear. Ava lost space in the community. The family moved away. Her name became one of those that no one mentions, out of respect for the silence of others. And me? I didn't celebrate her fall. When and the order die, I thirst out and I knew. No, I was not created to take pleasure in anyone's ruin. But I confess, that night, after putting Leo to bed, covered up to his chin with that blue blanket that Maria sewed when he was born, I sat on the edge of my bed, held the pillow in my lap, and cried, not pain, but of relief, of gratitude, well, question, of a kind of peace that comes when we know we have done the right thing, even having to carry the weight of silence for a long time. There are things that we put up with quietly, but that we never forget. And when the truth comes out, it is not revenge. It's just justice in the form of rest. But there was still one last conversation I needed to have, one that I put off for a long time. A promise I had made years ago in front of a coffin covered with rain-soaked flowers. I needed to talk to Maria. Would she listen to me? The house was immersed in that silence that can only be heard after everything has happened. It was not the heavy silence of anguish, nor the suffocating silence of doubt. It was a clean silence, with a swept floor, with a soul at rest. I was sitting in my old armchair, the brown velvet one, that has faded with time and the sunlight that comes in every evening through the west window of the living room. Next to me, Leo slept on the couch, with the red stroller leaning against his chest, as if it were a shield, her little mouth half open, her long eyelashes resting on her serene skin. I looked at him as someone who prays with his eyes, without words, only presence. While at that moment, I thought about everything we went through, in every ignored sign, no, in every sleepless night, in every time I kept quiet for fear of seeming bitter, exaggerated, while Tom, the superstrad sound, outdated. And I also thought about every time I was called dramatic, a mother who doesn't let go, an old woman who gets too involved. But there, in that room with the smell of a clean house and a lived history, I understood that what they call drama is just love that does not accept to be quiet in the face of danger. The world, the world is full of plastic smiles, people who learn to smile without ever feeling anything, who shakes hands and is already thinking about what he can get out of you. But it's also full of little warnings, small signs, intuitions that don't make noise, but scream at those who really love. The truth is that real love does not need a platform, nor a like, nor a spotlight. Love itself is measured in silence, when no one is watching, when you trade your peace for the safety of someone smaller. I've spent my life trying not to bother, raising children without interfering, being careful not to be that mother-in-law who gives a guess. And for that very reason, I almost lost my grandson. But today I know silence is not weakness. It is disciplined force. Mom, it's smart waiting. It is the terrain where we gather evidence, build certainties, and prepare the right time to act. I was never vindictive. I didn't raise my children with anger in my chest, but I was taught to keep it, to be observed, resisting. And perhaps this is the role of those who age with truth, to become guardians. We don't need to fight with time. We need to use it. It was time, who showed me who Ava was. He was the one who reminded me of every strange gesture. He was the one who sowed my intuition with Leo's eyes. And it was he who also gave me Mary. Maria, my Sims, how she made me laugh on Saturday afternoons. when we fried empanadas in the cramped kitchen of the Scottsdale apartment. How she hugged me tight after a hard day. How she looked at Leo as if she was born just to be his mother. Even after I died, she was the one who guided me. Yes, because I believe, from the bottom of my soul, that certain mothers continue to protect their children even when they are no longer here. Maria protected me through intuition, the intuition that I almost ignored. But that grew, persisted, long, and in the end, screamed, "Wow!" As I looked at Leo sleeping, I felt that she was there, not with words, but with presence. And that made me think about something I want to share with those who are listening to me so far. Aging does not take away our value. To grow old is to take the lenses off of haste, of appearance, of fear, of being judged, and see the world as it really is. We spend our lives trying to please, to be accepted, when to be useful. But it was only after I was 70 that I understood. My value was never in what I did for others, but in what I saw and kept. My love for Leo didn't fit in screams, nor in scandals. He fit into the gesture of holding his hand and saying, "I saw it. That's it." That was enough to change everything. Now, with him sleeping here next to me, with the quiet breathing of a safe child, I only think about one thing. Could it be that, wherever she is, Maria has also been able to rest? Life has not given me back the past. It did not bring back Mary, nor the years that sadness stole in silence, but it gave me back something even rarer, meaning. Now, the sense of standing even when everything around you collapses. After that night, Alex withdrew from the world for a while. It was hard for him to face what almost happened, and even harder to accept that, out of blind love, he almost lost his own son. But time, which calms and reveals everything, also gave him the chance to rebuild. Today, he and Leo see each other every weekend. They play basketball in the backyard. My days, go to the movies, learn to cook together. Now, he understood that presence is worth more than appearance. As for Lucy, I had still now happened sabo. My big-souled girl became the most solid foundation of Leo's life. They have created such a true bond of care that sometimes I find myself looking at both of them and thinking that love always finds a way to bloom. Again, even when it seems that the earth no longer has life, and I follow here, in my simple house, watering plants and memories. I make tea for those who arrive, and I listen to the noise of the street as someone who learns to love what is common. I don't expect any more applause, nor recognition. My voice was never loud, but it was always true. And if there is any greater justice in this world, she does not walk in high heels or walk through the front door. It walks with time, with firm and with silent steps, and accurate, Hey, if I can leave a lesson for those who have listened to me so far, it would be this. Silence is not absence. It is a presence that observes. It is love that acts at the right time. We don't need to shout to be strong. You don't even need to prove anything to deserve love. And when life seems too unfair, remember this: there is an all-seeing gaze. And if that look is from a grandmother, oh, then let the world get ready, because there is no greater power than that of a grandmother who loves. If I hadn't heard that whisper from Leo, if I hadn't paid attention to what no one saw, perhaps the world had lost the only love I had left. But the truth saved. Silence won. If you've stayed with me so far, I want to thank you with an open heart, because telling this story was not easy. But sharing pain is also a way to lighten the weight. And if this piece of my life could touch yours, then it was worth it. Help me spread that feeling. Leave a like here. It's like a silent hug that warms and strengthens this little corner. If you want to come back for another coffee with me, subscribe to the channel. Here you will always have a place on the balcony, with an empty chair waiting for you. And tell me in the comments which city you are listening to me. I love to imagine where these words go, which hearts connect with mine. Why? And it activates the bell. No kind. See? That way you don't lose when the coffee is brewed again. Now, don't go away yet. Listen to the next true story that will appear here on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story